Welcome, everybody. This is Elisa with the Rebel Crone, and I'm excited today to present a powerful panel of three guest speakers. We're going to be talking about a topic that I feel is most important to where we're going as a race of people on this planet and also as individuals. But before I go into that, I want to introduce each of my guests. Now, each guest has been selected for their particular wisdom that they can bring into this area. And you will understand as you dive into this with me and listen to what they have to say, you'll understand why I've chosen each of these people. The first person I'd like to introduce is Joel Schafer, the perceiver. And Joel I've known now for quite a few months and have spent much time with. And I very much respect this man. His mission has been single-minded since he was barely a teenager. Joel was focused on the shamanic arts and specifically Toltec wisdom. You can correct me if I don't have all this quite right, Joel. But this began his evolution of training with masters, and he's done that his whole life. Now, Joe is currently a personal empowerment mentor. He's a shamanic dreaming arts teacher. He also teaches people practices such as shamanic movement, the art of recapitulation, lucid dreaming and gazing principles, and much more. For me, his wisdom comes from deep lineages that have been passed on to him that he's studied throughout his life, but also his what I'd like to say is his vertical connection in the now with spirit is very powerful. So welcome, Joel. It's good to have you with us today. And my next guest will be Elizabeth Seraphine. She's the founder of the Priestess Path Lineages of Light Mystic School. Elizabeth also began her journey as a very young woman training in various shamanic arts, which she followed lineages wholeheartedly and full time. Both of these people have done this full time their whole lives. She's also has 5 black belt degrees in other various lineages and is trained with grand masters. Elizabeth has put together the Priestess Path Lineages of Light based on all these traditions that she carries so that it can translate into modern women and how she can bring the mystic arts and also the priestess lineage, kind of reviving it and bringing it back to life. And it's very powerful work. I was an apprentice of Elizabeth's for a whole year just recently, and I count her as a very dear friend and a mentor still in our various ways we're doing it today. So welcome, Elizabeth. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And our next guest is Robin Bryson. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And Robin, I don't know as much about, but Robin is an apprentice of Joel. Now, she was a dream traveler from the very start and has worked as a birth doula, a domestic violence and sexual assault advocate. She also founded and ran a sound and healing camp for many years. She's been involved in an international gallery gathering around the return of the feminine. She's done warrior training and young men's up-leveling courses. And as a mother of, and I can't remember if you told me 3 or 4 boys, 4 boys, she has a lot of experience in this area. Currently, she is involved in the local healing arts collective and is working one-on-one with Joel. Once again, my name is Elisa Chastain, and I am your host today. My journey started very young as well. At 7 years old, I had my first out-of-body experience, which I feel like really snapped the spell in some ways about what's going on here in this planet and the truth of who I am. Since then, I pursued just trying to find meaning in this world and out of this world as to what is really going on. I've had different various pursuits and studies along the way to figure out the spiritual underpinnings of life. Currently, I host the Rebel Crone. I also host the podcast Wisdom of the Modern Crone. I'm also an author and an artist. So, welcome everybody. I hope that gives our listeners a wonderful little preview of who is sitting here in front of you. So to start today, I want to just set a little bit of context of the overall topic that we're going to be diving into. Now, we all know, I mean, it's just so obvious, no matter how evolved in your spirituality, in your connection to the divine is, we can all see in this world that things are really messed up, that humanity is fast careening out of control. And what I see is coming towards a cliff of potentially no return for some. What is going with this? It's clear that humanity and our consciousness has been hijacked. It's clear that something has taken over and misdirected people. And this has been going on for quite a while. In my opinion, in order to correct this, yes, it's great to raise our consciousness, to raise our vibration, to have a more expanded view on life and understanding this world and history and all of that. The most important part that has to be healed is the schism between the masculine and the feminine, the females and males of this planet. Because herein, I believe, lies the fundamental problem of where we are today. We have a masculine power source that clearly has been hijacked as well, but has been dominating things. And if you just look at the world around you, you will see what the effects of that has been. It's obvious. And is anything working? Not much. In spite of it, I should say some things are working because the spark of life shines no matter where we are and who we are. It does shine through, but we still have some obstacles to overcome. So what I'd like to do is start the conversation today. I want to pick the brains of my guests as far as their lineages and what they've trained under. And remember, there's no right or wrong, there's just perspectives. So Joel, would you mind starting off and sharing with us from a Toltec perspective where this all started, who was originally in charge, and what happened with these two races, the males and females on this planet?
Thank you so much, Elisa. Beautiful opening and good to be with all of you. You know, the way Toltecs explain things is very magical and mysterious, and they don't necessarily speak to things as particular dates or events. It's a living myth, and we used to live inside of a very magical way, connected to source directly, and our capacity to read signs and omens and navigate through life was incredible, and it still is for some of us. And it's just a matter of considering the idea that what the Toltec suggests is that at one time women cloned themselves, and that this was a feminine realm, and that the masculine was invited in as a means to open up to new potential and experiences. And the way my elder explained it was that the Great Mother invited the sun seeds to come, and she realized that upon that decision that it invited this whole process of what led to the bittersweet tears of the oceans and the sweet tea of that we drink the waters of. And and it's a way of talking about it, but women have an advantage when it comes to dream travel, to being able to see, to be able to gaze, and to be able to open doors and go into other worlds without getting, they're not as susceptible to some of the dangers that come with men going into inorganic being worlds can get stuck there, and women have this capacity to go in and out without that happening. And so it's very important for the forces that have intervened upon us to keep women from discovering their power. It's a means to cut us off at the knees, and it's working. And I think it's the kind of the backup, getting our back up against the wall kind of moment where we're going to have to realize how resourceful we are as things start to get really difficult. Because the longer we're cut off from what we are, the more in danger we become, but that's what heightens the intensity. And so there is a feeling in the air that things are going to shift incredibly, that the dreaming consciousness will become more and more accessible. In the Castaneda books, Juan Matus refers to it as, if we don't remember the secret of the assemblage point, then we will perish, essentially. Our ability to move our perception, which women are very gifted at, it's critical that we gain the energy back that we've been depleting through our habits and behaviors and what we're paying attention to. So it's the reclaiming of our attention, which is the reclaiming of both the feminine and the masculine within each individual. And for men, especially, to heal their wounded masculine so that they are not in need of a woman in order to be whole, and then setting that. So this same essentially for women to not be like Toltec say women are complacent in a way that isn't natural, that they have the capacity to do incredible things with their awareness, where men are kind of not complacent. They're frustrated and driven to change, and they want to, they're designed this way, and women are designed this way. And women don't need to do this. Women already have access to that intuition. Men are here to climb to the top of their pyramid and announce their knowledge that they've gained, and it's a very powerful thing. And women and men need both. The capacity to, my snowboarding wouldn't be very amazing if it was all masculine. Like it's a very feminine thing to move with the wind and the snow and the elements, and Aikido and martial arts and all, how the feminine's really where it's at, because it's that moving outside of the physicality for a moment, accessing your dreaming body and being able to move in, especially in martial arts, you're not in a linear experience if you're in a real conflict with someone. So just becoming aware that we have so much to reclaim. And as we return to the mother through the earth by getting grounded, then we'll be able to reset our field. So Toltecs would bury themselves in the earth for long periods of time, as the mother is capable of healing us and taking our pain. And that's something I have experience with, is a really deep, profound healing with the mother. And that's what gave me the capacity to move deeper and deeper into the gazing arts, where I can be staring at the world and it stops. The world that you think is so physical, it's not. And if you can stay silent for long periods of time, every moment is infinite in its potential for your perception. So we have to develop an indifference in order to handle that much ecstatic connection. It's not indifference like you're not caring. It's, in fact, it's just a detachment that allows you to not be attached to outcome, so that you can allow spirit to show you incredible things about the nature of this realm. And this realm is super powerful. And this is just one layer of the onion. We're going to need to know how to traverse into these other layers as a means to survive, I believe. And I think that capacity is going to increase. So yeah, I'll just leave it with that for now.
Thank you, Joel. I love when you share your perspective, the Toltec perspective, because it's very magical and it's not having to be specific in mind matter of linearity, which we're trained so much in, just the linearity of things, and the magic has clearly been taken out of the world. And that leads me a beautiful segue into Elizabeth's lineages and the light that she carries and the wisdom that she carries, because there was a plan at a certain point in time. There's probably been many along the way. We're not clear on all that. We don't really know what's happened on this planet, because that has been eradicated. It's been systematically eradicated with all the various libraries and wisdom holders that have been eradicated. So there's been a plan with that, but it's clearly been to setting the schism up between men and women, and the masculine and the feminine. There's no way the world could be where it is right now if the power of women hadn't been honored. Elizabeth, would you mind sharing with us about your lineages and your perspective on kind of historically what has happened to get us to where we are today?
That's kind of a big question. What has happened to get us where we are today? But I will share about my various lineages. So, from the time I was a child, I was seeing spirits and seeing into the spirit world and being visited. And the journey of learning to deal with that and meet that in a world that was sanitized of the wisdom carriers has really been my journey. And I had been hospitalized for bulimia when I was 17, and came out of that and was really destroying myself because I did not fit in. And I had a lot of what we know now shamanically as soul loss. The first lineage that I studied, shamanism, came into my life, and it was specifically Shipibo, Kanibo, Amazonian shamanism, and Siberian Sami type shamanism. So those lineages of shamanism. which were brought into the Western world by my teacher, Michael Harner. I call him the father of modern shamanism because he really distilled it and digested it in the way that most people, millions and millions of people in the West, do it and understand it today. So that lineage has been consistently a part of my life, and I've been in a few different schools of shamanic wisdom, and then also spent time down in the jungles and in the upper parts of Peru and with the Paco shamans and all of that. So it's been a huge part of my life because they're the only lineage that knows how to put the soul back together. And that's the medicine that I needed. Essentially, I began as a soul doctor, and that's really my niche. And I chose to leave what I call the default reality very early on. I had a death experience at 19, which changed my life forever. It was a huge awakening. And after that, I knew I wasn't made for the world of the programmables. There's a programmed world that is the one that we're really suffering from. And then there's the mystic world. And the mystic world is the eternal world of the spirits in the spirit world. And I was always in that world anyway. So I just completely left and gave myself the freedom to go find the wisdom carriers and the masters of the lineages that I was so passionate about knowing because I knew they existed. But this was like back in the 1980s. It was not easy to find. Nobody went down to the rainforest to take ayahuasca. I have worked with the traditional plant medicines as well. And then the next lineage was the martial art lineages and the Taoist lineages. And I'm still a part of those as well. And in there, I became the first female master in my particular lineage and organization. So I have a lot of the male warrior teachings inside of me. And then there was a certain point in time where it was really crucial that I come into my own. When I began to do the plant medicines, I opened up very strongly back into my connection with my angelic lineages. And the dream teachers consistently come. This is part of the shamanic initiations. So when it came time for me to create my own mystery school, I sat down and I just closed my eyes and I said, what are the most potent initiations that I've experienced throughout these 35 years of my training and study? And I distilled that into what I now call the Priestess Path Lineages of Light Mystery School. The Priestess lineages were always near and dear to me because there was a resonance inside of my soul for them. But in the timeline that I've been born into in this life, all of those lineages have been intentionally sanitized from planet Earth, essentially, unless they were able to hide from what I call the conquerors, let's say, which is what I believe is a principality of spirits that are in the spirit world, but they are here as well, and they tend to find each other, and they tend to have the same negative interests of control, power, lust, domination. And we're really seeing that today. So those are the powers that initially went after the sacred women. We see it when Rome decided to use the one male god religion to persecute the female wise ones and the priestesses and shut down the temples to the goddess and essentially erase the goddess and erase the women of power. And they did it in their own backyard, which we know as Europe. So they did it initially to the Gaelic people, the Norse people in France, in England, in all of those places. We don't remember that. They started because they know that in order to control a people, you have to control the women first. And it's not about anybody over anybody. Women and men were supposed to work together. We work best when we work together, when we acknowledge the beautiful power that each of us individually uniquely have and the beautiful synergy between us. And that has also been intentionally broken. Part of the Great Awakening is an awareness that there is a program that they want to program you, they want to program your children. And the feminist movement to get the women out of the house and the children being raised by the state was a major part of that. And for those of us that can see it, we have a mission, if you will, because we love this planet and we love the animals and we love the elements and we love spirit. And so there are people that are attuned to that. And we are the ones then to send a voice and to establish, to put our stake in the ground, to establish structures that continue to honor and respect the sacred feminine, which is Mother Earth, her animals, her elements, the children, the innocence of children. This is at stake, clearly. The recent situation with there are no Epstein files, wink, is basically saying it's okay to violate children, and the powers that do that will never be touched. And so what's really beautiful is millions and millions of people see this for what it is. And just as Joel was saying, we're coming to interesting headwaters where those of us that can see it and those of us that are tuned, we can't stay silent about this. We can't stay silent and allow the innocence of children to be violated and the innocence of this planet to be violated by these forces that are inferior. And they've been on the planet for a long time. And so my mission to return the priestess temples and the priestesses that inhabit those temples is because of that. It is my rebellion and it is my mission as a warrior and as essentially a European, inside of a European female body, an eternal warrior of light inside a European female genetic body. It's to return the priestess temples. Those are the temples that were in that area of the world that were the first ones to be silenced from these forces.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was one of the things that really drew me to your work, is not only just you as an example of living that truth, but also has a woman in a white skin suit from European background that, I was born with serious magic and something magical to do in the world. But now people say that white women have your magic or your witchcraft, your beautiful spiritual powers have to be found in other areas, have to be found in other cultures, in other races, and that a white woman, what is her beautiful power center and power source?
I just speak into that before
Yes,
you move on,
please.
because this is really important. Because yes, as women inside of a European meat suit, you're renting a car. This is the car that we're renting at this point, but we've had many vehicles before. But there is this sense that, where is the white woman's sacred history? Just today, I was looking at the terms. What are the words? Because I say this all the time to my students. I say the word that we're using today, which is like shaman, to describe a person who sees into the spirit world and works with the spiritual allies, that is a Siberian word from the Tungus tribe of Siberia. So even, the people down in Peru that are using that word, or the people in Native America that are using that word, that is a word from the Siberians. And so I say all the time that in the language of all of the peoples of the world, there was always a term for that person that did that thing, that the mystic, the one that could see, the one that could heal, the one that interacted with the spirits. In Old Norse, the name for the female seer, the female healer, was Vola. There are names for us that come from our lineages. It's just that the conquerors wanted to wipe us out first. Also, then in Gaelic, the word for female seer was Banfaesa, Banfaesa. It was a word for a woman that would go into a trance and then connect to the spirit world and connect to the spirits. We call that shamanism. So it's false to say that the white Western woman does not have a sacred history. We do. Just like every human being on this planet. I've done the gazing in the mirror and I've seen every different culture you can imagine. I've been a man, I've been black skinned, I've been Asian skinned, I've been warriors in so many lifetimes. And so the fixation on skin color is another part of the insidious program to divide us, because divided we are weak and united we are strong. And the powers that wish to have control which is it's money, power, and sex. That's what they like. Look at Epstein. There it is, the holographic universe of the controllers in a nutshell. Go down that rabbit hole and you'll see the history of planet Earth ever since they were able to make that schism from the sacred feminine. So I love how Joel is speaking in the Toltec tradition that in the mythology or the story, it's the goddess first. But even in our chromosomes, everybody is a woman first. Everyone is female first, and it's the Y chromosome. It's the addition of hormones at a certain point in the gestation cycle that turn the female into the male. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that there is a history. There are what we would call shamanesses inside of our culture and our genetic lineage. And it is important because white women need to know, where do we stand? Where can we stand? And that's been important for me. That's why I chose to really come out publicly with the priestess lineages and not to focus on any of the other lineages that I really have a lot of training in. But it's really important that we remember that, yes, we do also have a very strong footing here, just as all peoples on planet Earth do. But it's important because of languaging and perception and how do we interface with the dream to understand the languaging and how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So you think about the word for women in white women that have a magical connection in all the different beautiful ways to Mother Earth and healing abilities and doula abilities and just any transcendent abilities. They were called witches, and that's a highly traumatized term that a lot of violence and aggression and horrible things happened to women that carried that. And so that word alone is such a stigma nowadays. They thoroughly did their job of alienating and making people afraid of a term that is supposed to grasp a whole range of women and magic and abilities. It is in our languaging, is absolutely right, has been very much traumatized and changed. But I'm really so happy to see that nowadays this is changing, and you're doing a beautiful part in that, Elizabeth. I really appreciate the work that you're doing and the commitment to making a difference and to bringing this into focus. One quick thing that I want to hear from Robin is when Joel first told me the story, the Toltec story of in the beginning there was the goddess and women populated this planet, a light bulb went off for me. And it's, of course, in this inverted world that we have, and the inversion that a lot of the religions in particular have done, where they say women came from the rib of man, it was, of course, it's probably the exact opposite of that, because they flipped everything. They flipped the whole paradigm that men need to be the connecting force to the divine and to the male God power. It's through men, and then women can serve men in that, which is an inversion of the truth. We are definitely in a very upside down world that's been hoodwinked from who we really are. Robin, I would love to open the floor to you and anything you'd like to share on where we are right now in the conversation.
Just a little bit about me. As I had shared with you, I've been having experiences since I was around 3 years old, but I also have memories of actually before birth. And then I've had experiences throughout my entire life. And I've gone in and out of a lot of different traditions. I've been a mother of 5 children, and one of those being my daughter, and then the 4 boys. I've been a birth doula. I've worked as a death doula, which is something I didn't share with you before, and with sexual assault. But coming back around to where you had just left off with Elizabeth, what she was speaking to with the genetics and the beginning of this place, I really like to speak to the kind of the mechanics of the masculine and feminine. This place is a female reality. The male was created using the original feminine genetics and invited in. I remember being in nursing school, actually, and looking at the X chromosome, and the Y looks like an X with a leg chopped off. Speaking to what Joel was talking about, men working like a step pyramid or an obelisk in the way that they move through their learning process. They move through mastery, one step at a time. This is reflected in their sexual organ, the phallus. It's focused and directed also. The energy is focused and directed. That's a piece of masculine energy moving up into the totality of themselves or their full remembering, where women just need to remember the yoni or the egg. All the pieces are there, but there's been so much fear and destruction and suppression through this last time period that we've been in, that we're now transitioning out of, that there's a lot of fear in women to remember what they have the capacity for, the two energies. We call them also the masculine and the feminine. There is the castle walls or the sides of a wand that allow the feminine power, the feminine energy to come through. There's a relationship where the masculine energy gets more constricted and it builds up power to a certain point. If it's too constricted, we have in the world right now, their government with all of this red tape, it's overstructured and it has choked out the feminine essence. It's choked out the power. It's choked out the flow that can come through a structure. I was shown at one point over my sacral area, the womb area is a Minoan knot. And at the time that I received that teaching, I had no idea what that word meant. I had to go look it up later to see if that was even a thing. And I found that there's actually a Minoan culture that does exist and a thing called Minoan knot. The meaning is the relationship that we have with this entire place. It's both the masculine and feminine in perfect balance, where the outside of the knot is the masculine part. It directs the flow of the power of the feminine, the raw, wild feminine energy, the Shakti energy. You can use all kinds of different words from all over the world to describe the feminine energy. It comes through that structure and it loops around to do its pathway through life, through whatever structure it is that you're building. And then it goes out the other side. But that if the knot is tied too tight, it will choke out the feminine essence. And if the knot is too loose, it will fall apart and the feminine energy will come in and it will spill out and it will just go everywhere because it has no container. So the tension has to be just tight enough, but not too tight. And so that is the dance. That is the dance between the masculine and the feminine that we're doing. I've worked with a lot of women in crisis. I've had my own history of working with the masculine that was showing up in some fairly tyrannical ways. It's intense and it's awful when you're in it. There's a story of a woman who was being raped in an alleyway, and through the eyes of her attacker, she saw all the way through to source. And she had this massive breaking and this awakening, and she totally came back to herself, like her true self. There's a lot of parts and pieces that need healing, but ultimately, what we would call quote unquote demonic forces, it's all part of this place, which has all the dynamics to ultimately help our soul grow. This last time period, men and women were separated. The castle walls and the Shakti energy were separated from each other. Everybody forgot how this is really supposed to work. This place contains the beauty and the horrors. And to learn about all of that process that's coming up through the inside of us, whether we want it or not, whether we like it or not. And it is working through people, because everybody, if you feel into their energies, everybody needs a little bit more or less of the fear, a little bit more or less of the nurturing and nourishing, a little bit more or less of the push or the holding at different times. Yeah. So I feel like this is all being cleaned out and we're in that process and we are going to come through it.
Robin, thank you for sharing yourself with us. There's no doubt it's not just the women that bear the scars and the burden and carrying the cross of deceit on our backs. Men have been the same, absolutely the same way. And within each one of us, our masculine and our feminine, and between the two of us getting along. The battle of the sexes, that's what we're growing up hearing, right? This is the battle. It's mom and dad and all this tension, as opposed to the dance of the sexes. Where do you ever hear anything that alludes to that? Nowhere. Our parents represented the battle of the sexes. There was no harmony there. Robin, there's so many points that you brought up that takes a very sobering wake-up process to seeing the, I hate to say hard truth, because I feel like truth is the most gentle, beautiful thing. And if we don't listen, it becomes harder and harder to hear, and maybe it's delivered in stronger messages. But there's a lot of things people have to wake up to. And one of the fundamental things of understanding is about the dream time of this world. And this isn't the only dimension reality we're in. It's not just this one body, this one skin suit, this one time. What we're taught in just tyranny of religiosity is one of the pillars is that you have one shot. This is it. They took reincarnation out very early on. So there's all kinds of repressive ideas here, and one of which is limiting our understanding of who we are, which is multidimensional beings that have had many lives and many experiences, and it's all happening in this one big, beautiful now. But when you limit it down to the fear of death, the fear of atrocities, how can bad things happen to good people? And we get so, it's really scary, especially if you're playing the version of the game that bad things are happening to you. It makes such little sense. So I'd like to hear from both Joel and Elizabeth on that. We'll start with Joel as far as the predator and the dream time from a Toltec perspective of how those little worms get in there and what sort of havoc they play on moving us away from the truth of this planet.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember being 4 years old and I could control my dreams, and then something started getting in front of me. And I was just like so frustrated, like what is going on? And I couldn't do what I was doing. And then I was having night terrors. I was being visited by these beings, and they were telling me I have to do this and this like really quick and now, otherwise your mom's gonna die. And being that young and susceptible to that, I was really running around the house screaming, awake and asleep at the same time. And I remember the fever dreams were how I could travel. It was when I was in that state that allowed me to really have the breakthroughs. And so I really came to terms with the interference and the ways to get to know what's possible by exploring in all the ways. And that led to power plants later on. But the Toltec suggests that we're in just one, that there are many gates of dreaming, and that we're going to need to learn how to cross them by having control in our dreams, and that you can learn to go deeper and deeper. If you can control your dreams to a certain degree, you'll meet your parallel beings. And so the Toltecs actually would say that it's not reincarnation isn't accurate. There's parallel lives are coexisting, and we're not linear. We're magical, non-linear creatures. And all that we can do in this life to evolve will benefit all of our parallel lives. And some of those parallel lives are like torturous, and some of them are just purely ecstatic. We're not just this. And having contact with our parallel beings makes us aware of how much more there is. So the dream world is the means and methods to no longer be a prisoner of this predator that has figured out how to control our perception by lending us its mind. So Don Juan claimed to have vanquished his mind because he was no longer allowing that radio channel to have access to him. It was still there. He says, I have a companion for life, whether I like it or not. So he had to be impeccable his whole 24 hours a day in order to not be fed off by this force that nibbles off of our luminous energy, because it's very beautiful. It's like a man being attracted to a beautiful woman. It is energy that you really want. These forces cannot help it because we are that incredible. What the Toltecs say is that they defy this force by not feeding it. But you can't do that for other people. You cannot change. You can heal someone, you can give them soul retrieval, you can do all the things, and you can train them eventually to heal themselves. But it's a very confronting thing to come to terms with, how distracted we are, and that the voice that is guiding us isn't always So they say there's a hard voice and a soft voice. And that soft voice will guide you home, which is for your summage point to move back to the place of pure attention. And then you'll reclaim the totality of your being. The Toltecs say that we were born with the totality of our being and we die with the totality of our being, but in between we forget and we miss out. Some of us are starting to understand how much there is to experience, and we can slow this whole thing down. We can go into other layers of the onion where time is different. You could spend 10 years somewhere and be back here in a second. No one would know you were doing that. You wouldn't, and you don't even tell anybody. It becomes so beautiful and you're so thankful that you don't need to write a book about it. You know, and that's the freedom. Is the merchant mind usually hijacks people that start to have powerful experiences, and then you end up doing it for profit rather than spirit. And so that the traps of this realm will keep us from being lucid. And so our capacity to get our youthful energy back and be silly and playful and make fun of ourselves and become jesters, essentially, become the fool who no longer needs to be seen by his father as victorious. And that's the neutrality we get to go into, is that suspension of judgment, where we're not judging our parents or the predator energy. And then we can actually make a difference. And that courage will spread like wildfire, just like fear. But this daringness that it takes to become a lucid dreamer, it's a real thing. You have to become courageous. You have to deal with your fear and get to know the voice. Part of you says you should go out in the woods tonight. Another part of you, I think I'll just go to bed. But if you start listening to that part that wants you to heal, it'll guide you into the most powerful experiences that will reset your patterns. And then you won't be predictable. You'll become wild. And then dreaming gets really strong because you become like an animal. You're hunting energy in your dreams. You're being called to go visit other parts of this realm and other realms entirely. But it's dangerous. If you were doing this as a means to gain power, which a lot of old sorcerers did, the old sorcerers got. It's really dangerous what happened. Doing the shadow work actually is more important than becoming a dreamer. Getting to know your wound. And I have plenty, but I'm aware of them and I speak to them so that I don't deceive myself. But there is a time also to honor the growth, the fact that you've moved beyond fear to a certain degree. So the fear is a big part of the dreaming. It's very uncomfortable when you're starting to focus because this predator does put lots of pressure. Your assemblage point's starting to move and all of a sudden there's an itch behind your neck. And if you go to itch, that assemblage point's going to go right back. So you have to breathe through the little annoying things that start to happen to you when you're reclaiming your attention. And you also can't beat yourself up if you give up because it's so fucking intense. The energy is so intense. So you find a way to dance with your advancement and also love yourself when you just feel like watching a movie or whatever, so that you're not disciplining yourself. Discipline works for a period of time, but eventually it has to become impeccability. And that's where the laughter kicks in, and then the dreaming becomes liberated. And then if you're trying to copy Castaneda or anyone, then you're going to miss out on getting to know yourself. So there's a period of time where you have to let go of everything you've ever learned and give it back to the mother, and whatever she wants to give back to you, then it becomes accessible. You don't have to carry an inventory anymore. That's what happens is you recapitulate your life, you'll get super light and you start to dream travel. But then you're going to need to get very energetically grounded, like a martial art practice or something, to make sure that you don't get spun out and end up schizophrenic. Dreaming is the solution to our situation. And actually, we can co-create and dream together and go into other worlds, just like they do on ayahuasca, but we don't need the ayahuasca. And that's going to be an important thing to understand, is that it's okay to do whatever power plants you're called, but being able to do that on your own is what's going to make it possible for us to not get hijacked even more, in a sense, because you're starting to see that with the ayahuasca communities. They're just being hijacked. It's tragic, but we need to see this so that we're not lying to ourselves about the predicament we're in. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you very much, Joel. I appreciate you dearly. Very early on, I had the night terrors as well too, Joel, as a little girl, and they were real. I felt the spirits in my room. I could hear them. I could feel them sitting on the bed looking at me. I'm being looked at, but I was frozen and locked in space. And once I got my voice, I would scream bloody murder. The wise doctors that they are told my parents to say no because I'd run into their bedroom. This is when I learned my first ritual of protection. It was my stuffed animals that I put around me. I made a ring and they all touched around me and they encased me. And this was my protection. If I stayed within that, I stayed safe. But look at that whole thing, that ring of protection. People have it pulled in so tight in their fear and their mind. It's so constricted in their living. And what we're talking about now is opening up our perception so that the masculine mind, the engineered masculine mind that we have running things, has got humans bound up. We're talking about taking the bounds off so that we can actually think freely, become wild, think freely, and become the autonomous, sovereign beings that we are and live in harmony within and without. And I'd like to pass this off to Elizabeth. What I'd like to hear from you is the perspective of where we are right now, the bound upness of our humanity, what's going on this planet, what's going on specifically within us with our masculine and feminine, and between the dance between men and women, which is now a battle between men and women. So if you could just, wherever you want to spin off of that, Elizabeth, is fine, whatever comes to your heart with it.
Thank you. I love what Joel was talking about. I love everything that you're talking about, and also Robin as well. Just really, I love these conversations, and it's really wonderful to sit with like-minded souls. I feel that Earth is a school. When I have had my death experiences and my sojourns to the other side, I have experienced the pathway back to creator as levels of evolution, honestly, that are earned by how we graduate through various levels of our education as an eternal soul that comes from the light of the divine. After my spiritual mystic education in this lifetime really galvanized my understanding and my personal feeling that I'm a flame inside of the Son of God, and I'm incarnated here in my particular school system. And for me, it's been nothing but a mixture of spirituality and being a 3D human. And that was really my pathway of exploring as a woman in 2025 now. I went from being a tomboy and wanting nothing to do with the feminine energy because my mother was, bless her soul, she was really wonderful in that she honored my mystic abilities and she didn't tell me that they weren't real. When I did see a spirit and I yelled for my mother, she would respond really compassionately. She would ask me questions about it. She didn't know what to do with it, but at least that lifeline allowed me to really feel that it was valid and allowed me to explore it for the rest of my life. But she was also manic depressive and bipolar and emotionally violent, which gave me an initial rebellion against femininity. I grew up as a tomboy with an older brother and wanting to fit in and not knowing what to do with my sexuality, not, resisting puberty. That's why the bulimia set in, because I tried to control becoming a woman. I didn't want to become a woman. I didn't want to be a man either. I just wanted to not have the responsibility of it all. I feel that we need to really honor coming back into respecting the sacred feminine begins in our own body and really honoring our own body that we've incarnated in if we've incarnated in a female body. If I had been able to go to the temple like I wanted to and be trained by wise women like I wanted to be, I probably wouldn't have tried to destroy myself or my femininity really early on. And Joel is talking about the predator, and there is predator energy here in this 3D Earth school that we are in. The predator is a big part of this classroom. And you can call it Satan, you can call it evil, you can call it the Illuminati. It's been known forever. And as you know, Elisa, some of the things that we do inside of the temple, we learn how to work with that. We do banishing and protection ceremonies. We have invocations to the archangels, which have been my go-to when those energies decide they want to try to interact with me. That's part of the tools of the mystic. When I am in my temple with my students, I tell all my students, we have an appointment at some point in time with your shadow. They're predators inside of somebody's energy field and psyche. They're taking power away, and we call it doche. In the martial arts, in the Korean arts, there's a word for it called doche, being drunk on your own mind. So this predator energy is a part of all of our minds, a part of all of our spirits, personally and globally as well. And so what do we do with it? We become warriors. Instead of cowering or allowing it to prey upon us, we turn around and with sobriety take a look at it and say, what is this? What do I do with this? My journey from being a really broken human being and from being so shy I couldn't even talk to having my own global temple, having 5 black belts, being a female warrior, it has taken a lot of courage. As Joel has said, it's taken a lot of courage to not go on the default pathway that's made by the predator. The predator created a pathway for slavery. And unchecked or without there being the skilled ninjas that are working for the light, that predatorial energy will continue to prey. And so for me, I feel I'm a band of warriors in the light. I've always been that in the eternal planes. And whether I'm here now, when I pass from this body, it's going to be the same. My proclivity, my loyalty is to the light and to a certain kind of innocence that I see inside of the earth, the trees and the plants and the animals and the children. There's a vulnerability there that if warriors don't stand up, it's preyed upon. That's the way of it here. Women are burning out because we've been thrown into a masculine role and we're very isolated. We're exhausted and we really want to fall back into our feminine. And in order to do that, we need our men to step up and hold the perimeter and come back. And we need to reintegrate our relationships so that we can give each other those things that we really need and come back into harmony as a society. So for women, it's really important that we come into our balanced power because a lot of women are coming into the boss bitch power. They're like, I don't need anybody. Don't you open that door for me. It's a very masculine, honestly. It's not feminine power. It's a masculine castration energy. That's not femininity. That's not sacred femininity. That's castration energy. And so there's a lot of the loud energy, just like Joel was saying, even in the ayahuasca movement, a lot of the very loud energy is a very showy energy. And what did you say, Joel? It was like materialistic or transactional. And so what does it really mean for women to come into their power? It's not to castrate men. It's to honor the masculine, the healthy aspects of the masculine, to find good teachers and good mentors so that you can get a good imprint because people are getting half truths and not the greatest information when they go to Instagram to get their mystic wisdom. That's not where you're going to get it. That's why we have initiation, and that's why sitting with a mentor that you trust enough to sit with for a while, amazing things will begin to happen because that's how we change and grow. And when somebody hasn't had that kind of a really beautiful relationship, a lot of times they're often doche, the illusion of their own mind, drunk on their own thoughts. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. And so part of it is having the wisdom and the humility to actually get a decent education for yourself, I feel. So for women, the meditation of what is femininity? What is feminine? What does that mean? Where am I burning myself out in the masculine? Honoring the masculine, working with the masculine. I call my masculine advisors when I've got a thought or an idea going around in my head to run it by them because I know that my feminine thoughts are in the realm of chaos. I can definitely allow things to happen that are imbalanced because I'm being too compassionate or I'm not seeing things really clearly. So I need the masculine mind to help me navigate. And so I feel like the initial kind of destruction of the feminine and then control and perversion of the feminine is that the masculine didn't want to admit how much it needs the feminine and it needs the connection and needs the feminine energy and feminine heart, feminine body, sexuality, and didn't want to actually go through the process, which is sometimes difficult, of earning that. Instead of earning the actual heart of a woman or earning a woman's body to open to the masculine, just took it. He was like, screw that. I'm not earning anything. I'm dominating it and I'm taking it. And so what happened is then there's this whole inquisition that went on for women and for indigenous cultures. And that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of it again. My call is to warriors, female warriors embodied in female bodies, warriors of the light who want to really come back to our balanced power. It takes courage. It's not easy. It is a path of transformation. It's a path of waking up to who we really are and what's really going on here and how to meet that predator as a warrior of light, as essentially an angelic warrior. That's my lineage, are the angelic warriors. And so here, boots on the ground at this particular time. So that's a lot on that. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's very clear that the distorted realm we're in right now, the pendulum has swung very far to the left, to the masculine, very out of balance, where we don't have that memory anymore of what a healthy feminine is. So there's something in the evolution of humanity, I feel like, in this beautiful schooling of the human being, is we're having this experience completely devoid of any remembrance of the feminine. Now, because it swung so high, it leads me to believe that at one point we had it maybe on the other side, where we had a feminine power out of balance without the masculine. But either way, the truth we need right now is coming into that center place of balance. And it's up to men and women. Elizabeth, when you're talking about your own journey as far as with the masculine and feminine, and I also was a very powerful little girl and I have a very strong masculine side. And for me, it's been growing up is really not appreciating and not liking or honoring the feminine in me. But it was coming to terms with it when I was apprenticed with you, and about really embracing the feminine and the masculine within me, sitting down and having a dialogue with the masculine and feminine part of me, the masculine literally passing the torch to the feminine and stepping back and saying, this is your time now to come forward. And it just brings me to tears. That's the beginning of creating the Rebel Crone and giving wise women that have gone through the gauntlet, have been forged by the crucible of life and lessons learned, and they're not easy. This is where it came from, was honoring the feminine in me and saying, you have the mantle now. Let's do it. This is what I incarnated into, being a female. Now, I'd like to have Robin address that because she is a mother and she has 4 boys and 1 girl. You've been very steeped in raising these masculine beings. I'm interested in that camp you did for warrior training for young boys, because that's something that's lost, is what a true warrior is. You all know, the men that would be listening to this channel, that it's not that. It's not John Wayne. It's not Rambo. It's not all these icons in our media. They're showing a very aggressive, lopsided male that has no feminine balance point. So, Robin, would you mind talking to us a little bit about a mother of boys and the work you've done, especially with young men, and your perspective of trying to bring some balance and true sense of masculinity into their worlds?
Yes, definitely. With the boys, there's been a real recognition, just watching them from when they were really young. Boys are very physical. They're very external. When they're little, my daughter was sitting down, sitting very quietly and putting her dolls to sleep, putting the covers over them, feeding all the little animals outside. She was doing all of these caretaking things. It was a quiet energy where the boys every single one of them was very involved in the gross motor skills and throwing and running. And I was running after them all the time. It was really active. It is the work of children in general, whether it be girls or boys, is to get a feel for the world we're in, is to find out what this external world is. But that's really what we're doing. And then we go through that process in preteens and teens where we move into the abstract. We start moving into the abstract concepts and stuff. And I find it really interesting. Just there as a side note, young children oftentimes tend to wake up really early with the sun, and they're going all day, and then they get tired and go to sleep at night while they're in this process of this external world. It's like a sun process. And then they go into a moon process when they're in their teenage years, when they're going into the abstract, when they're going into the inner worlds. Teenagers want to stay up much later at night, to the point where they're even looking at starting high schools later, because they become like nighttime night beings just naturally. What I've seen is that boys really need to be physical. They're built to be physical, and you see it in the body structures. If you just look around, you see the way that men are built. They're really built to be the castle walls. Women are not built as physically strong. If you look at traditional roles, and some of this stuff is going to rub people the wrong way, and that's okay. So just hang with me for a second. Women are the foundation of the house, the hearth of the house, the warmth, the beauty, the creativity inside the house. This life force has to be held by these castle walls that are not beating down upon the woman. They're not making her feel bad for her emotions, her psyche, her mental processes, her intuition. When we first moved here, there was a man that brought 5 turkeys over, because we started out with 90 chickens and 5 turkeys and all this stuff. He shared his experience of whenever one of his turkey hens gets pregnant, he's found that it didn't work to corral her and put her in a place. The whole process was better. She was healthier, more vibrant. The baby turkeys thrived. The whole process went better if he let her be wild, go around, find where she wanted to nest, and then he would build the protection around her. During this last time period, with the way that things have been distorted, the benevolent leader has become the tyrant. And when you're trying to cage the feminine and force her into something, you actually destroy her energetics so that she can't be the foundation. So you end up with glass houses with Barbie dolls in them, instead of this beautiful stone foundation around you with this gorgeous garden and a little creek flowing through it in the center and dancing and singing. Men have to be able to actually see what an honor it is to have been born into this life, to be the castle walls and to be the knight in shining armor. And they have to choose it, realizing this is such a beautiful role. It's such an essential role. We have this beautiful earth, which is feminine, which can be destroyed. It can be manipulated. Men have the ability to destroy it all if they choose. They're the castle walls. With my boys, we've gone into the beauty of what the masculine and feminine dance is, and all of the stuff that can be presented to take you off your path. We did a lot of challenge, because guys really respond to being challenged, especially if it can simulate life or death challenge. That really sharpens masculine energy. Even if you can play that out in scenario, it works really well to get them tuned in. Tribes used to do all kinds of sport type activities or warrior training for boys. It's moving that masculine energy through their bodies in this beautiful, healthy way, which lights them up. It lights up all their instincts. It's such a gorgeous expression of what masculine energy is supposed to be. You see it reflected in the color of their cheeks, how vibrant they feel, how alive they feel, and get them out in nature as much as possible. We brought in some logical fallacies and different things of how to recognize when, quote unquote, the predator energy is present, and then how to respond to it in the world, whether it's through the digital stuff, social media, all of this stuff on the internet that's so prevalent, when it's coming through their peers, their peer culture, to really bring in something that's toxic, but it's labeled to be cool, and to see that's actually inverse, to have them tap them into their hearts. So that feminine essence within themselves was also heard and seen and safe, and in an environment where they could find out where their limits were or find out where their inspiration was and their life force coming through, but not be threatened. That's some little bits and pieces.
That was beautiful, Robin. And I just love your analogy of the castle walls. Because if you build a castle and nobody wants to live inside, what is the castle worth then? It's a fool's errand, right? I'd like to have Joel give us his final words on where we are right now in this dance, this holistic dance that we're having to remember and recreate in so many different ways. And then Elizabeth, my mentor, I want to give the honor of the final word with it because she is my mentor and I honor her, and also what she's doing with the Priestess path, which I think speaks to this very directly.
One more
Yeah.
thing is that I do want to speak to the dark, of the beautiful dark. There is the predator kind of energy that's been here, not helpful dark, and there is a not helpful light where people get taken out by the bliss and the shiny and the flash. And then people associate the dark and darkness and all of that with being something bad or evil. I've really come around to looking at the seasons of the year. The winter is the time of darkness, and it's the time of nourishing and resetting yourself inside, where everything goes dormant and things go quiet. And you can reach that inner silence. And just naturally, it's a cycle. And I'm not going to go into that too far, but the dark cosmic womb and the healing darkness is the darkness that the feminine have, even in the yin yang and stuff. It's not evil. There are distortions of both light and dark, but there are also the original essence. And there's these dark retreats where you get to go and your body gets to sink into a somatic healing. We need to pick off what was overlaid as being toxic and come back to an honoring of the darkness that is the original essence of women, that we are born from a dark cosmic womb.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Clearly, everything has been hijacked, hasn't it? You know, it's the exact inversion of everything. You pretty much want to find the truth. Look at the opposite of what we've been indoctrinated with. Thank you. Joel, my dear, please chime in.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Such a powerful talk, and so honored to be in this circle with you all. And yeah, I mean, just becoming conscious of what our wounding is by having experiences in which the potential to be triggered. So like Toltecs eventually they guide their apprentices to go work for a boss who has an incredibly powerful ego, someone that's never been defeated, someone that has unlimited social power, so that you can be in the presence of power, get to know what power is and the difference between social power and real power. Shamans are jovial, liberated, and laughing at themselves and playful. And these men that are not, that are focused on their social power, their trophy wife, and the merchant mind is the words I used earlier. It's incredibly intense to be in the presence of, and a lot of people are avoiding the reflection process by isolating, becoming hermits. But there's a time eventually you get strong enough where you go and face the world, get to know what you're made of. Because the road rage or whatever might still be going on with you is an indication of your wound. And our wounds are humbling. They're here to humble us. We're not going to be free of wound. And so for a man to face a powerful woman in an intimate relationship and get to know his capacity to navigate her power, her wildness, to hold space for her to heal without sacrificing himself by being without boundaries, right? I'm still learning in this process. I'm a novice when it comes to this, but I'm learning from the couples that I hold space for and help them to communicate. I'm learning so much from every client as to where I'm at and how far along I've come. And so it's all connected. And our ability to just realize that as Carlos Castaneda said, you don't need a guru. The world will teach you everything you need to know. Just go out and have the experiences. And you're going to be attracted to people. You're going to be disturbed by people. And you're going to want to understand what it is. If I'm really attracted to a woman, it's because she has something that I haven't developed for myself. I get to know how I can become whole. And then the magnetism leads to being able to then potentially have a powerful relationship with that woman. But if I'm putting her on a pedestal, right, then I'm going to be disempowering myself and falling into that kind of that trap that's been set for men, which leads to a lot of confusion and anger and resentment. And it's just, we're not very aware of these things. So this is our opportunity in this life to do so. Thank you for this time. Much love to everyone.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate you dearly. Elizabeth, would you like to wrap this up for us and just put it out in a beautiful bow?
Thank you so much for hosting this, Elisa, and bringing on such a powerful panel, really. And what I see is that in sacred tribes and sacred societies, it is the councils of the wise ones that help guide it. And we are due for a return of these elder councils and for tribes to return. I think we are basically making our own. They're not necessarily our family that we've been born into, but more and more we need to find our people of like mind and come back together. And just as Robin is doing, she's creating the initiations for her own little tribe of men that she's birthed through her body, which it's very inspiring, Robin. And these are the things that we're called to do. So this is the creation of the new world. I see everybody here busy doing it. And Isa birthed the Rebel Crone in her initiation, and she's out there on fire doing it now. We're due for the return of a beautiful dance between the masculine and feminine. I designed an entire program for women who are burnt out to restore their feminine energy. It's called the Deeply Nourished Woman. The energetics of the feminine are different than the energetics of the man. And the structure is it's a male structure right now. And if you're not aware of the predator, you're going to go for men. It's the shiny object. And that shiny object is going to deplete your personal power, your real power. And women are aware of this intuitively. And so women are intuitively having a difficult time feeling truly attracted to men because the men are depleting their personal power with pornography and hidden deceptive things going on in relationship, and so are women, right? Nobody gets away with anything, and women are over masculinating, which is kind of repulsive to most men. It's not an attractive energy when a woman is castrating. And just like Robin said, women, for us, it's to remember that the masculine is very much nourished by us, and to remember how can we hold safe spaces where we acknowledge the masculine and we give the masculine a safe place to stand erect in the universe for something and to come back into their masculinity. And so I'm really hearing these conversations, and I'm a part of them. And I'm a part of these new tribes that are building in my own life. And I'm grateful they're coming in, because it's like we've gone far enough. We've gone far enough into individuality and separation and trying to erase masculinity and femininity. And we've given our power away enough. And the new world, we are here to make it. And so I see this as a panel of people who are busy making the new world that we want to live in, and the world that we want to hand over to the beautiful children of this earth, and to wake up and stand in protection and in intending this. And I think these types of conversations need to continue on. I'm impressed by the wisdom of everybody here, and Joel, bringing such beautiful masculine wisdom into the conversation, especially about the neo-shamanism and the way people are using ayahuasca and all of this. So I feel we need so much more of this, and I just wish you all the best in everything. And I hope that our paths can continue to intertwine and create more and more spaces where power can truly be here, and we can tend the beauty of this world and walk freely in the beauty way.
I love that. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I'll be sure to put links in the description below. So if you want to speak with Joel, I know he offers a initial consultation with people to see where he could fit in and help serve and move them along in their beautiful evolution of awareness. And Elizabeth as well. I'm not sure if consultation, but she has a beautiful website you can go to and find all kinds of information there as well. And then, Robin, I don't know if you have any outpouring or anything you're doing right now, but we'll talk afterwards. I can put the links below as well. I just appreciate all of you so very much, and I knew this would be a powerful conversation. We have 4 very different people and very different experiences, yet speaking all one language. And for me, that's the language of love that's contained in truth. It's a beautiful symbol of the dance that we're doing within us and on the outside. And I know all of you share with me the heartfelt desire to be able to dance again with our brothers and our sisters and do it in a beautiful, harmonious way, and to bring back this precious, powerful planet of ours into harmony, so that our true mother, our divine mother, can celebrate with her children once again how it's designed to be. And I think this is one powerful step that we're making here, as other brothers and sisters are doing out there, in reclaiming that our heredity is our God-given, our mother-given rights of being. And it's for each of us to claim. And there's powerful workers out there, there's powerful voices that are serving. And I've got 3 right here. And there's other ones, when you're ready, the teacher will come, and the exact right teacher will come. So we're never left truly adrift in this world. When you're ready for that change, it's there. And we're at a beautiful time where we can access that. Anyway, so thank you so much for joining us for this time. And I hope to have you all back on again in various configurations for more topics. Because we just really scratched the surface of it, didn't we? There's so much more to go into it in this reclamation and this remembering process. And I'm just excited to be a part of it. And I'm excited to know all of you. And it has just absolutely been my honor. So thank you again for joining me. And thank you again for all of our listeners out there for joining the Rebel Crone and these other 3 powerful beings. And I hope you walk away from this time together inspired and rejuvenated and refocused in a way of really being honed back into who you are. It's very different than what we've been taught, and it's very different than what we think right now. I know for me, even though I'm at the pinnacle of my awareness at this point in life, but I'm at the very tiny point of something even bigger, expanding and exploding from that into more awareness. So it's an exciting journey, and I am pleased to be on it with you all. So thank you very much. And until next time, peace be with you all. Remember, peace comes from within. It starts and it ends there.